Hey, welcome to the Journey Untitled Mystery Podcast. I'm your host, as always. Your mystery guest this week is the one, the only Jon LeFave. How's it going, sir?
It's going great, Liam. Thanks for having me, man.
Dude, of course. Most of Journey probably don't know what you do at the church. Do you mind describing your position, describing your role?
Yeah, so the role title is Local and Global Engagement. So what that really means is the ways the church is involved locally, so Surrey, White Rock, Langley, I guess, area. And then globally, our partnerships are with primarily Uganda and was India. That's kind of, I'm trying to figure that out right now, but Uganda and India right now are what it looks like globally.
Awesome. So it's local and global engagement.
Yeah.
Which aspects of both of those excite you the most?
Both of those.
So, like, what excites you about local? What excites you about global?
Yeah. Global, what excites me about global, well, again, our world is so unique and different. And so when we are engaging, more often than not, it's Uganda. That's the primary global. And so when we're interacting with Pastor Michael and his team and the church there, the ways they're engaging their neighbors and community while there's similar values, it's so different. And so there's so much to learn from them. It's just different perspectives. I love that, of course. It's been great to get to know them. That's been my primary experience with Global. Fun fact, actually, Pastor Justin oversees the India piece. So Uganda is really just me. And he does India. Locally, lots excites me locally. I think probably the number one thing is, the opportunity for us as followers of Jesus to tangibly, live out our faith. And so ways we can do that in our community, the opportunities we have, the ways that our neighbors, the city can see that we as the church care about people. And
because the church is involved with night shift, as well as we had the cold weather shelter in the gym.
So honestly, COVID has been obviously a very sad time for many. It's been a really stressful and crazy time. Disorienting, great word for that. One of the silver linings of COVID for the church is it's led us into a lot of really cool opportunities. And so places where we weren't aware that there was needs before, we were made aware through various relationships, and we've been able to jump in. And so, there's a weekly meal, Uptown White Rock. There's now a food truck ministry that happens every Tuesday in our parking lot. And while food and feeding people is super cool, probably even cooler is just getting to know a lot of different people and who otherwise we wouldn't have been able to meet. So,
dude, that's sweet.
Yeah.
What? Like the behind part of this question is, like, let's say I'm a student and I'm a high school student. I want to get more involved with serving the community, like locally or globally. Where'd you tell them to start? But like before that, what got you into this?
Yeah.
What was it like for you as a where did that journey to doing local and global engagement start?
Yeah, so it actually is in those early young adult years. I was asking all these questions. I was going to Bible college at the time and, freaking out over, God, what do you want me to do with my life? And probably in an unhealthy way, like super stressed about it, not trusting that, like, if God's a good father and he loves me, he's going to tell me, So I was pretty nervous about that. And then I was going to school in Saskatchewan and I busted my elbow. I couldn't go back to school in Saskatchewan because of surgery. So I was forced to go to school in Toronto where I commuted. I was living like an hour outside of Toronto. Anyways, while I was there, I started attending a church that was primarily, the church consisted of folks on the margins, whether street-involved people or people living in affordable housing and whatnot. And so they would have weekly meals. And it wasn't the type of thing where you showed up and like served a meal from behind a table and passed it out. It was like sit down at a table, everyone shows up, you just eat together. So I got to know a lot of people, and then we'd go on, they called it outreach, and you'd walk around till like 2 a.m. and with backpacks full of socks and whatnot. And in those few months, I just was exposed to all these new realities, ways people were living that I had no idea. I grew up in, affluent suburbs of Toronto. And so it just broke my heart. And it was no longer this question of like, oh, I don't know what to do anymore. It's, oh God, you've done something to my heart. I know what I want to do. I know what you're calling me to do. It just became really clear. And so that kind of propelled me into, first I was working downtown with folks on the margins for 4 or 5 years, and then high school students, and then moved out here. And that's definitely been a driving force of some of the ways we're involved now at Peace Portal of trying to do that. So yeah, that's been my journey.
So let's say I am a student, like high school or whatnot. What are the first steps I take if I want to get involved with something like this?
Yeah, so to my story, I would say, because God is so good, he speaks to us all uniquely, and he gives us each desires, and he's wired us differently. And so I'd say, pay attention to how God's made you. What do you love to do? Like when you have experienced God, or where he's done something in your life, what have you felt compelled to do? And again, I don't think we always feel super motivated to serve. I'm not saying that's the case, but I do think God changes our hearts, and he makes us drawn towards certain things. And so if you're a student and you're wondering like, how do I get involved? First I'd say, what's going on in your heart? What do you love to do? And look around you. Like if we can do food truck ministry and stuff at Peace Portal, that's all great. But if people have friends and neighbors in their community who they're like, oh, I don't need to be involved in that because I can serve people this way, again, that's awesome. We do some initiatives at Peace Portal to try and meet some needs, but primarily people have friends. They're at school. They're seeing, well, maybe not right now, but actually, yeah, kids are in school. Yeah, they're seeing people in need. Those on the margins. Like, that's where I think it really comes alive. And sure, it might grow to other things, but I'd say, what are your immediate circles around you right now, and think, how best can I serve here? Because that's where it really matters.
Yeah, start with your day to day.
Totally.
Use your strengths. Go from there.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Make sure that you're not pouring out of an empty cup. Make sure you're getting poured into. But
totally. Yeah.
Dude, that's sweet. You mentioned you're originally from Toronto.
Yeah.
Toronto, Ontario. For those of you who are doing not so great in
geography
class.
About the other Toronto in Canada.
You've done several big moves. One was to Briarcrest in Saskatchewan.
Yeah.
For students who are going to be moving across the country, maybe when COVID settles down, what is it like to navigate that, like within your faith life, emotionally, mentally? What's it like moving across the country?
Yeah, I think as it relates to maybe fears that come up or certain anxieties, it was really, in hindsight, I look back and I think, oh man, God went before me. And so I remember hanging out with these two guys a week before I left for school, actually first to Vancouver Island for a year, then Briarcrest.
No way.
So a week before I went to Vancouver Island, I hung out with these two guys, and the three of us were hanging out, but these two guys were like best friends, and they dropped me off at night, and I went home, and I remember praying like, God, I would love a friendship like that. Like I had a lot of friends, but none where I like, we both loved Jesus, and we were both like wanting that to be pretty central to our friendship, and to, iron sharpens iron type thing. And so I prayed that, and literally the next day or the next week, I got in a plane, and on the plane ride, my eventual roommate in Vancouver Island was from where I was living in Ontario. We took the same plane, showed up in Vancouver Island, bunked together. We shared a room. We were like, and he became one of my best friends. And my desire, my fears, God met me, and he went before me. And so I would say for those anxious, I get that. Know that God's going before you, and has people. And if you're going by yourself, that can be nerve-wracking. But there's something I think that definitely is awaiting people there, and so that's one of the things. I think God just, again, certainly in my case, he just brought so many amazing people around me that knowing that God's gone before you, is going before you, is huge.
That's awesome. Just a little side note.
Yeah.
So you're originally from Ontario. What's food you miss from there?
Yeah, that's a really good question. Food in Toronto is really good, as it is in a lot of major cities. So we lived in a part of Toronto called Parkdale, and Parkdale, if you were to Google search it and go on maps, there'd actually be a little thing that says Little Nepal. So Toronto often gets these little titles. I think a lot of cities do this too.
Yeah.
But like Little Italy, Chinatown, other places, and so Parkdale is Little Nepal or Little Tibet, and so. There were a lot of Tibetan restaurants where we lived, and the best food, they were called momos. They are Tibetan dumplings. And so for the longest time, until the guy opened a store, he would sell them out of his apartment. His company name was the Momo Man.
No way.
And you would just call him, and $5 cash, you'd get like an order of momos. And his apartment building was like 3 doors down from our apartment. And then he eventually opened up a shop, and we were in Toronto last summer, and he's got a shop now. We had some momos. It was amazing. The sauce that goes with it, we ate way too many momos, but I miss those a lot.
Yeah. Well, you know, I mean, you got sea lovers here across the church parking lot, but you mean like, that doesn't compare, right?
No, it doesn't.
It's not a momo. What were some of the decisions leading up to Briarcrest?
Yeah. So I did not want to go to Briarcrest. My sister went to Briarcrest first, and so it goes my sister, then 3 boys in our family. So me and my brothers mocked her endlessly. Like, you're going to the middle of Saskatchewan. Where are you going?
For those of you wondering, Briarcrest is a Christian university in the middle of Canada's favorite rectangle, Saskatchewan.
Right. And if you blink on Highway 1 driving past it, you will have missed it. It's 15 minutes west of Moose Jaw in a town of 1,000. When school's out, it drops to like 300.
Yeah.
And I hear it's beautiful in the summertime, but in the wintertime, it's cold,
a nightmare.
Frigid,
One
dark.
whole nightmare.
Yeah. Great people, but yeah, so I did not think I was ever going to go to Briarcrest. I thought I was going to go to Ambrose, actually, because I grew up in the Christian and Missionary Alliance, which Peace Portal is affiliated with. And their school that's affiliated with them is Ambrose in Calgary. I thought I was going to go there. And then on a strange bunch of events, ended up at Briarcrest. And a bunch of friends, we switched all last minute and found ourselves in Saskatchewan. And I'm, of course, hindsight's 2020. I'm so glad we did. Mm-hmm. There was a lot of really hard things. Like I said, it was dark, it was cold, and
it's Saskatchewan. Yeah.
Yeah, I ended up there.
Gee, I have family there. It's like, again, the summers are great. Winter's a bit rough.
Right.
Winter's a bit rough.
Right.
You met Justin Lenny there?
I did, yeah.
That's so fun, man. Yeah. Now you're coworkers. I mean, I guess I'm also
So fun fact, actually, in my year in Vancouver Island, there was someone, and maybe you'll do a podcast on prophecy, so I'll just say this. They had a prophetic word, which essentially in this instance was a very normal way of them saying, God's giving me this thought. It may or may not be from him. It's not a bad thought. He said, I think there's something really important about you and Justin's friendship. You should not go to Ambrose and go to Briarcrest. This was one of the crazy events that led to me changing. And so I was like, kind of weird, but he wasn't aggressive. He wasn't, super intense about it. He just said, hey, take it for what it's worth. If it's not from God, then go to Ambrose, have fun. But he said, maybe consider. And so within a few weeks, me and 3 other friends, all not from the same guy, but we all had our own sense that, hey, I actually don't think we should go to Ambrose. We should go to Briarcrest.
Yeah.
We went to Briarcrest. Justin was our RA our first year.
Oh, yeah.
And the rest is history.
Registered accountant. Yeah, no, I'm just kidding.
Yeah, no, he kept us in line for a year, and then the rest is history. One of my best friends.
That's
and,
wild.
Yeah, very cool.
I had no idea that was with that. Moving. I'll give you my only instance of me moving.
Yeah, please.
Well, that is within my recollection. When I was 1, this is the one I don't remember. When I was 1, my parents are teachers. They did a teacher exchange. They went to England for a year. Cool. They swapped with some British family, I'm sure. They swapped houses, and they my dad was teaching where the British person was teaching, and then they were teaching in Canada. I have no recollection of that trip. There are photos of me when I was 1. Right. I am in England. Don't remember any of it.
1 year and came back.
1 year and came back.
Okay.
So when we moved back to Lower Mainland, we lived in the same house for a while, and then we moved around the block. And to me, that was big.
Right.
You've done several moves where it's like quite literally across the country.
Right.
How do you stay grounded in such a turbulent time? Like, whether that be like how do you stay emotionally grounded? How do you stay mentally like within your faith? Like, what are some things that kept you rooted? Because again, like we might have students that might, whether it's for school or we've had students like have to move away or whatever. So like as someone with experience, what were some of the things that kept you grounded in that?
Yeah. So I was throughout the moves again. I moved when I was 9. Again, I was probably less aware then when I was 18, and then multiple times across the country now that I've been older. But I think again, that's been a process. When I moved to Saskatchewan and was away from my family and whatnot, that was probably the hardest move. Again, you're in dorm, you're probably not eating the best food, you're probably staying up too late, right? It's not as healthy as maybe it should be.
Yeah.
And so I think
the weather.
Right. The weather, you wake up and it's dark, you go to bed or you go to dinner at 5 and it's dark, like, all that seasonal stuff. And so I found mentally I was in a pretty difficult spot. And so I learned more than ever in those moments that every morning I wake up, I'm telling myself a narrative in my head. The thoughts that I allow myself to go through my head, like nothing's neutral. It's either like in line with scripture. It's either who am I? God loves me. He's made me. He's got a plan for me. Like he's faithful and he's going before me today. And crazy things might happen, but God's with me. As opposed to thoughts of, fear and God's left me, all these things. And so when wherever I found myself geographically, Ontario, Vancouver, Saskatchewan, it became really important for me to rest in the fact that, like I said earlier, God's gone before me. He's with me. He's for me. And so he's like not against me. He's not like is out to get me. Like he's for me. And so, he brought people in my life that were helpful. He sustained me during difficult times. And so I think the kinds of things, the kind of habits, the disciplines we give ourselves to when we move. And so like scripture reading, that's, we learn a lot about God in that time, but it's also like we're reminding our body, our minds, like this is what's true. When we're in prayer, when we're in conversation with those who love Jesus and they can encourage us, like that's all forming us. And so whether you, wherever you live, you can give yourself to habits that are formative. And I think that's always been really important for me. Where in stressful times, wherever I'm living, it's okay, so God's the same. He hasn't changed. He loves me. He's with me. Okay, so I can proceed on difficult days or in foreign places knowing that that's there. And like I said, he brings real humans alongside you as well.
Totally.
You're not totally alone in that. So
leaning on God, getting in good, healthy routines.
Totally.
That's awesome.
I'd say community is so important. If you're going somewhere by yourself, finding good community, doing whatever it takes to get plugged in right away, because it could be easy to kind of withdraw and whatnot. But I'd say finding good people who can speak life into you and encourage you is huge.
Totally. Jon, this has been lovely. Thank you for being on. Thank you for your insights, of course. If people want to get in contact with you, say if they want to find out a way they can serve locally and it's more related to the church, how would they go about doing that?
Oh, like all of us, our name plus the first initial of our last name, Jon L at peacepooralliance.com. And if the world allows for it, we can go for coffee.
If the stars align, if Lord willing,
grab a Starbucks or a Slurpee or something.
It's Slurpee season. Oh, okay, hold on. Before we stop, it's Slurpee season, and I'm real excited about it.
What is your favorite Slurpee?
Oh man, if it's not Lent and I haven't given up energy drinks, I'll typically get a Coca-Cola or Pepsi equivalent Slurpee. Yeah. I'll have about like a third of it, and then you pour in like a 250 ml thing of Red Bull.
I've never
life-changing.
I've never heard
It's so good, man. Don't knock it till you try it. No, it's either that or I'll get like the classic, like get a little every flavor, try them all out. Don't get the crushed lime down at the Circle K. It's always watered down, and then there's that whole like the dissemination of knowledge amongst like young people being like, yo, and you pass someone on the way to Max and you're like, yo, they're out of like a cherry Coke, and they're people lose their minds.
That's hilarious. What I didn't know before moving out west was Screamers.
Oh yeah, ice cream.
Slurpee and ice cream. I'd never had that before.
Sacrilege.
You don't like that?
No.
Oh, really? I think it's amazing.
That's Abbotsford concoction right there, man. That's cursed. That is that's some dark timeline.
Well,
snack.
let me just say, Barks.
Barks
not Barks root beer, but Barks. What's the alternative? Barks.
Oh, the cream soda.
Barks cream soda is the greatest Slurpee flavor of all time.
It's like, first of all, no one knows they make it. Secondly, it's really good.
It's mixed with Coke. That might be top drink.
It's really good.
Yeah.
Anyway, Slurpees aside, Jon LeFave, a pleasure as always. And we'll catch you next time. Thanks for tuning in.